I grew up in a New England suburb. Our house is a huge colonial, over 150 years old. As a kid, I used to get creeped out sometimes, especially late at night. I have 5 siblings, so luckily it was rare for me to be home alone. Shortly after college, my mom and I were the only two living in our home together. My 3 older siblings were married or engaged, and the 2 younger ones were off in college. My bedroom at the time was on the 3rd floor, directly in the center of the house, aligned with a walkway leading to the front door. My mom's bedroom was 1 floor below. One night as I was sleeping, it began pouring rain. No thunder or lightning, just heavy rain and strong winds. The sound woke me up, and I recall just laying there staring at the ceiling and listening to the storm. Then I distinctly heard what sounded like someone walking slowly outside, in hard-bottomed shoes. Initially, I wasn't sure because the sound of the wind and the rain was so loud. I didn't think it possible for footsteps to be loud enough to be audible, especially from the 3rd floor. But the sound was becoming louder and clearer, as though the person was getting near to my house. Not only could I hear footsteps, but the person was also whistling. I felt compelled to look out the window, but for some strange reason, I felt afraid. So I leaned out of bed and parted the blinds just a tiny bit, just enough to peek through with one eye. Sure enough, there was a tall figure, maybe a block away, walking toward my house. He was a man dressed in a trench coat and dress shoes, but I couldn't see him from the waist up because he was under a large umbrella. As he approached my house, which was on his right, I expected him to continue walking. But as soon as he got to our walkway, he stopped, whistling, and turned his entire body to face my house as if he intended to walk up to the front door. But he didn't. He just stood there. Then he tilted the umbrella back as if he was looking up directly into my window. I couldn't see his face because the black umbrella was casting a shadow. I was shocked, though, and absolutely petrified, too scared to move. He stood there for maybe 30 seconds, then lowered his umbrella again to a normal level, turned back in the direction he'd been walking, started whistling again, and walked away. I slowly laid back in my bed, waited until I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore or his whistling. Then I bolted downstairs to my mom's room, told her that I had a nightmare, and asked if I could sleep with her. Mind you, I was 21 and hadn't slept in her bed for many years. She gave me a quizzical look, but she let me stay with her. And to this day, I still wonder who was that stranger in the rain. So this happened about 5 years ago in my home state at around 3 p.m. It had been storming all day, so it was fairly dark and creepy out. I drove out of my neighborhood and was only a few blocks away when I stopped at a 4-way intersection, with all 4 sides having a stop sign. As I waited for 2 vehicles to cross the intersection, I was glancing at my phone to make sure I wasn't running late. Something caught my eye as the 2 cars passed each other. To my left and right were light woods with neighborhoods behind them. I could see something bright red in the forest to my left. I looked up from my phone just as a very unkempt lady came rushing at me through the tree line. She lost her footing and fell face first and hard onto the cement road. I was next to go through the intersection, but knew I needed to make sure she was okay first. I got out of my car. At this time, I was a 22-year-old female, 5'2" and 100 pounds. And the first thing I noticed was that she hadn't moved at all since hitting the concrete. And 2, she was only wearing a light nightgown, no shoes or socks, even though it was freezing and storming out. I walked slowly up to her and was repeating, "Ma'am, are you okay? Ma'am." Without moving any other body part, she moved her neck, scraping her face against the concrete to tilt her head my way and make eye contact with me. When she looked at me, she looked, best word I can think of is crazy. Like completely insane. As she looked at me, she started pushing herself up with her arms. I was saying, "Ma'am, don't move. I'm going to call 911. Just stay put until they get here. You really hurt your head in that fall. Do you need something? I have a blanket in my car." She's struggling to get to her feet as I am repeating this to her. I pull out my phone and call 911. And as I do, she somehow finds her footing and is standing about 9 feet from me, just staring. By now, another car is pulled behind me and asking if we're okay. I turn to the driver and explain what was going on, and as I do, I can hear footsteps on the pavement behind me. I turn back to look at her, and this old lady is now charging me as fast as she can. I make a little yelp noise and try talking to her again and calm down as I back up, and I reassure her that I'm here to help. Her eyes make it obvious she has no idea what I'm saying. She starts grabbing my hair and clothes and pulling me towards the woods, saying inaudible things. The man in the other car got out and starts to disconnect us and tries to help. I ran to my car and locked the door. She's trying to get past him and back to me, but he finally got her to sit down. I could hear sirens in the distance. I rolled down my window and handed the man a bottle of water and blanket and told him the sirens are for the lady. And then I was freaked out and had to leave. I drove slowly past the man and seated lady through the intersection and in my rearview mirror. I could still see her staring at my car as I drove away, fixated on me. This happened while I was still in high school. I used to walk a few neighborhoods down to where my friend got on the bus. It was only a 5 to 10 minute walk, depending on my pace. So I could get on the bus and sit with him, since the bus that picks me up at my stop is always full by the time it gets there. So one morning, I'm at my friend's bus stop alone and waiting for him when a guy comes up to me. This happened at like 6 in the morning too, so my main thought at the moment was why this random guy who looks like he's in his 20s was up and about at this time. To be fair, maybe he was going off to work. Maybe he was waiting for the bus as well. But he was very lanky and fidgety, like he was high on something. I don't know. Then he started to talk to me. He pointed out that the sun was just starting to rise, specifically the orange glow it was making on the horizon, and asked me if I knew what the orange meant. I just said awkwardly that it's probably the sun, but he cut me off, saying that it was drones in the sky, watching us, and that the orange in the sky means that is them. I was kind of just like, okay, interesting. And then went back to my phone, feeling weirded out. After a while, I saw him wander off, out of the corner of my eye. Even though he had left, though, I had the strangest feeling that he was still around. Like maybe he would come back. Maybe he was lurking about. Maybe watching me. I was hoping the bus would arrive sooner rather than later. The creepiest thing is that after he left, a car comes around and pulls up to me. And I was like, oh boy, here we go, thinking it's him. But then the window rolls down, and it's a mom who's driving her own kid to school. She had a warning for me. She told me that there was a guy circling and watching me, and said to be careful because girls my age get snatched up around here all the time. I thanked her and went about waiting for the bus. She drove off and left me there alone. She knew a guy was watching me, and I guess she was confident I could handle myself. I mean, thankfully nothing happened, but still, I sent a text to my friend, full of panic, asking if the bus would get here quickly. And it did. But still, thinking back on it gives me the creeps. Just what was this guy up to? For context, I live in the USA in a pretty well-populated apartment complex, with my building right across the parking lot from the leasing office and the tennis court. About 2 years ago, the office installed some fencing on the far side of the tennis courts to be used as a dog park. On the other side of the dog park is just a big empty field that borders with a different apartment complex, maybe 20 yards away. So I recently adopted a dog. She's an older pup who alternates between sleeping for hours and being so hyperactive that she spins in circles just to entertain herself. I take her on maybe 3 walks a day, and we always go to the park. I adopted her pretty recently, so I've been making use of the dog park pretty regularly. She absolutely loves running around there, so we usually spend about 15 to 20 minutes there before going home. Now, I have an unusual schedule, so our last walk doesn't happen until 2 a.m. This has never been a problem for us until the lockdown happened, and my state issued a shelter-in-place order. As a result, the lights that used to illuminate the tennis court and dog park have been shut off. I still took my dog to the park, though. I just brought a flashlight along. Last night, we finished our walk and went to the park like usual. My dog had been acting a bit strange, pulling hard on her leash and making grumbling sounds. But once we were in the park, she was running around like normal. However, as I was standing there, huddled in my coat with the hood up because it's cold and a little rainy out, my dog abruptly stops dead. I figured she saw a rabbit or something in the field, so I turned on the flashlight to look around. And in the field, there's a man. He's pretty far off, but clearly walking towards us through the grass. I was a little spooked already because it is 2 a.m., raining and freezing cold. But the man doesn't seem to be wearing a coat or hat. I immediately decided to leave and went down the length of the park to grab my dog. I hooked on her leash and jogged to the gate to leave. Once we did leave the park, my dog went ballistic, barking wildly and yanking so hard on her leash that she was choking herself. I turned around and could barely make out the silhouette of the man bobbing up and down, like he was running after us. I didn't even bother with the leash. I picked up my dog and ran for my building, terrified that she'd claw herself over my shoulder to try and get to the man. Once I got home, I bolted the door and wedged a chair under the knob. It was probably a dumb thing to do, but I felt safer knowing it was there. I curled up on the couch in my living room, watching the window and praying no one comes up, while my dog stood stock still in front of the door, growling every time the wind blew or something shifted outside as the storm picked up. I told my boyfriend and roommate what happened, but neither of them seemed spooked as I was. I don't know what was up with that guy. I have so many questions about the whole incident, but I'm scared to consider what might have happened if the guy had been closer to the park when my dog noticed him. Or maybe I'm just being paranoid, and he was coming over to say hi at 2 a.m. in the freezing rain during a lockdown. Anyways, I'm kind of scared to go out alone at night, so my boyfriend goes with me to walk the dog. We didn't see the guy tonight, but I can't shake off the deep sense of unease that crawls up my spine whenever I think back on it. I had what felt like a strange experience yesterday. For context, I'm a woman in my early 20s in the UK. I was leaving the supermarket down the road from where I live and carrying a fan. It's been a hot week. Just a small regular desk fan in a box, and a small bag of groceries, nothing too heavy. Well, as I was walking down the road at about 9:30 p.m., twilight, I see a woman walking towards me from across the street. At first I thought from her clothes that she was homeless. She was going to ask me for money, perhaps. She didn't look super rough, just a little something. Well, she waved at me and in a bright, friendly voice asked me if I wanted any help with what I was carrying. I thought she wanted to walk down the road with me and carry something, but I prefer to walk alone, so I said, "Oh, thank you, but don't worry, it's not heavy." She didn't leave, but said, "Oh, let me help you. I'm worried about you carrying that." Again, I said, "Thank you, but it's okay." Still, she did not leave, but instead said, My partner saw you walking and he felt sorry that you were carrying that and he wanted to help. At this point, she points over the road to a car that is pulled up on the side, and I realize she wants me to get in the car. She keeps insisting and not taking no for an answer, saying, "We can take you, it's no trouble." She must have tried to ask me 8 or 9 times before finally giving up and walking back to the car in the passenger seat. One thing that struck me is that this woman looked like she'd been going through a rough time. Her clothes were shabby, and even though she was smiling and friendly, her face was a little bit gaunt. Something off. The car she pointed to was a lovely, expensive-looking car. That seemed out of place and unusual. Also, her partner never showed his face. And when I looked toward the car, he must have been leaning back in his seat or something. This took place in a semi-busy road. There wasn't any force or anything, just a sort of eager insistence for me to get into the car with them, more than I've ever experienced. What do you think this was? My boyfriend and I had recently started dating, and we're both desperate for a break. He was under a lot of work stress, and I had just lost my dad and was drowning in legal paperwork. Itching for an outlet, I said, "Hey, why don't we go for a week to my summer house and just chill? We would still have our responsibilities, but at least we'd be together." He loved the idea. We set a date, and we were off. The house is in a tiny remote village, agricultural, empty in summer. Olive and orange trees for miles. It's about 20 minutes from the sea. Perfect for two overstimulated 20-year-olds to just exist in limbo for a couple of days. The house sits across from the village square, an old school building in the middle, playground to the left, and an open space where they host a yearly festival. Growing up, my parents would watch us play from the balcony. Behind the square, down a slight incline, there's a small olive grove and an electrical building that powers the lights of the square. This layout becomes important later. On our second night, close to midnight, we decided to go sit on the swings, something I've always wanted to do since I was a kid. Something special about that at midnight. The square was empty, naturally. Peaceful, even. After a while, we got bored and moved to a small play structure with a slide further back in the playground, closer to the school. The light there had gone out, leaving that area dim, but still visible. I was facing the direction of the olive orchard and the electrical building. My boyfriend was facing my house. I glanced over my shoulder and I noticed my aunt's porch light. Her house is next to ours. It went off. When it's on, it usually means someone's sitting in the yard, probably in our direction as their house also faces the playground. I remember thinking we finally had some privacy. About 10 seconds later, every hair on my body stood on end. There was this debilitating pit in my stomach and a voice screaming in my head, "You need to leave now." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. My boyfriend looked at me, and I knew he felt it too. We kept talking, almost deliberately, as if acknowledging it would make it real. The feeling didn't fade. It intensified, felt more urgent. Like if we didn't leave soon, something terrible was going to happen. Whatever this feeling was, it wasn't coming from the direction of my house. It was behind the school, near the electrical building, maybe in the trees. Something threatening, almost as if we were being hunted. What made it worse was the silence. No insects, no rustling, nothing. And when we first had arrived there was a breeze, light rustling in the grass. Now nothing but deafening silence. We got off the structure slowly. We refused to use the ladder that led down toward the orchard, and instead went down the slide facing the exit. We didn't run. I didn't stop looking over my shoulder until we reached the street, the entire time fearing that my eyes would meet someone else's in the darkness. Only once we were inside did we talk about it. We described the same gut-punching feeling, The same location, the same urgency. Neither of us had seen or heard anything, and somehow that made it worse. I also found it extremely weird how quickly after I saw my aunt's light turn off, I felt in danger. As if someone somehow knew that we would be more vulnerable in the dark. No one would be watching. That could be the paranoia talking, but still doesn't sit right with me. The next day, shaken but trying to be rational, we went on with our plans. Cooped up from staying home all morning, we decided that evening to have dinner in a nearby mountain town. We were gone not longer than 3 hours. When we got back, my boyfriend parked on the incline of the driveway. I walked ahead to open the garage gate. I didn't see it until I was almost standing over it. There at the end of the incline of the driveway lay a motionless cat on the drain, placed directly in front of the entrance. No blood, no signs of impact, just wrong. I froze. My boyfriend immediately moved in front of me, got me inside, unlocked everything. He grew up in the countryside and later told me it didn't look like roadkill and that the cat appeared to have died hours earlier. Maybe even somewhere else entirely. I've been told cats usually hide when they're nearing death. If it was roadkill, the absence of blood or impact made little sense. This felt almost deliberate. I've never encountered a dead animal before, so I'm not entirely sure. The cat remained there until the next night. When we came home from dinner, it was gone. Nothing else happened after that. We stayed the rest of the week and have been back since, but never felt that fear there again. Always I look at the playground expecting to see something. There's nothing ever there. Still think about how sudden it was, how primal, how both our bodies reacted before our minds had time to catch up. I'm coming here for some closure. I guess it's been a year and we still talk about it from time to time. And that same feeling comes back all over again. I don't know if someone was watching us or if someone wanted us to know that they had been. Either way, to whoever or whatever was near the playground that night, let's not meet again. This just happened a few hours ago. My house is on the very edge of town, right before a large wooded area. We do have neighbors. There are 6 apartments in total and some houses across the street. But it was around 11 p.m., and at the time most of them are usually asleep or sitting in front of their TV, or both. I went out to take the dog on a walk and noticed a bike leaning against the wall in the driveway. Seemed odd since there's a bike rack behind the house, and several people in the neighborhood use it, but I didn't really think much of it and went on. When I came back, the bike was still there. Now there are walls to both sides of the driveway, about 5 feet tall at the highest point right behind the gate. So I looked up the wall to my left, right into the cold, dead stare of a woman crouching on the wall. Scared as hell, I just kind of stared back for a second. I'd never seen this woman before. She didn't move whatsoever. My dog also seemed rather confused and scared. I kept walking to the door, but never took my eyes off her. Once we were past her, she jumped off the wall and started following us. At that point, my dog, a pretty big Doberman mix, began barking and growling, and that luckily stopped her from coming any closer. I got in the house, locked the door behind me, and I'm once again glad I have this dog with me. Look on the other side of the glass. She's standing there, staring. I don't know who she was or what she was up to, and I haven't seen her since. So creepy lady in my driveway. I hope you have left, and please, don't ever come back. This happened over a decade ago when I was 12 years old. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, and in my neighborhood, the houses are fairly spread apart, separated by woods. It was a school day, so my grandma picked me up from school and brought me home. This was the first year that I got dropped off at my house alone. Before this, I would just go to my grandma's house after school. I get dropped off around 3 p.m. My parents would be home around 4:30. It's not that big of a deal. Today, for some reason, my dad wasn't going to be home until later, around 7. And my mom, a teacher, wouldn't be home until around 8 because she had some parent-teacher conferences at the school. This happened in early fall, so it wouldn't be dark until like 8:30. I did what I usually did when I got home. Ran upstairs, got to my Xbox 360, and played Minecraft with friends. Today was just me and my friend Seth. I was playing for about 2 hours when I heard a car door shut in my driveway. No one should have been here until like 7. My house is set up to where my upstairs has windows that look over my driveway. So with my mic on and controller in hand, I went to the window to see who it was. Maybe my dad got home earlier than expected. I looked outside. It was a red truck. No one I know drives a red truck. The person pulled into the middle of the driveway sideways, like he owned the place. When I looked out the window, I saw a man with a hat, wearing a big camo hoodie and jeans. It was September, so no one should have been wearing a big hoodie and jeans in Oklahoma. By the time I looked, he was almost out of view, going up my walkway to my front door. I thought maybe it was one of my dad's friends or someone my dad hired to do something. But he would usually just tell me if someone was going to be coming over, give me a heads up. Soon after, I heard a knock on the door, then another. I go to my other window that has a better view of the walkway up to my front door. I see the guy walking back down the driveway. I switch and go back to looking through the windows, overlooking my driveway. I'm relaying all of this to Seth, still with my mic on. I tell Seth that he's walking back to his truck now. But instead, he walks past his truck and tries to open my garage side door. At this point, my heart sinks. Something's wrong. I tell Seth that this guy just tried to get into my house. Mind you, it's literally broad daylight at like 5 p.m. Luckily, it was locked because sometimes we do forget to lock it. After he tried the door, he starts walking back to my patio. I drop my headset and I quietly run downstairs to see what he's doing. I get downstairs and stand behind the wall so I'm not visible from the back door or living room windows. I just listen. I hear him trying to open the door. Then I hear a thud. It sounded like he dropped a brick or something on the ground. At this point, I'm more scared than I've ever been. I wanted to call my parents or grandma, but I didn't have a cell phone yet. The only phone in the house was in the kitchen. I would have to cross my living room to get there, and he'd be able to see me if I went there. A few seconds after the thud, I peeked around the corner, and he was gone. I ran back upstairs to put my headset back on, telling Seth that he just tried to open the back door as well. As I'm telling him this, I could hear a car door shut. This time when I look out the window, he finally did get in his truck. I looked over at the truck and tried to see closer, and the only thing that I could see in his truck bed was a crowbar and a shovel. He sat in his truck for what felt like a few minutes. During this time, Seth told me to go get my iPod and take a picture of his license plate. He was parked to where I couldn't see it though. Then he drove backwards out of my driveway and down the road. A few minutes after, he was confirmed gone. I went downstairs to see what the thud could have been. I get to the back door and see that the doormat was moved. Both big plant pots had also been moved. He was looking for a key. Holy. We have a hidden key back there too. The key to the back door was under one of the smaller plant pots on a hedge near the door, not the bigger ones that he had checked under. I went to the front porch and all the pots looked like they'd been moved too. I don't know what I would have done if he was able to find the key or if he just broke in. After he left, I called my dad and told him what happened. When my dad got home, he had a cop come over and I told him what happened and gave him a description. The guy never came back.